Question: May Tan Ajahn advise what is the proper way to get rid of old chanting books or Dhamma books that are not in good condition anymore? Do we send it for recycling? Do we burn it quietly? Yeah, I find this a problem myself. Calendars as well. The calendars with pictures of monks and Buddhas on the calendar. What do you do? And I don't like to just put it in the trash. So I would say, if you don't have any choice, my way is to burn. First, I find that burning something is the best way of dealing with Dhamma materials or pictures of photographs of monks or of Buddhas or anything concerned with Dhamma. So I personally don't feel comfortable about just throwing things like this away. Although, it's just color on paper. If you're looking in the sort of the pure Dhamma sense, but nevertheless, in the conventional sense, I feel these are material things that are deserving of respect and care. But better than throwing away or burning books is to donate them and to make some inquiries whether there are institutions, schools, monasteries, colleges with libraries who would like to receive Dhamma books. They don't always have to be in the best condition. They don't have to be like pristine condition, as long as they're readable. And so just taking a little bit of time, you can maybe check on the internet or ask around among friends and see whether there are places that would be happy to receive some charitable foundations maybe, and put them in the post if you don't have the time or the resources to go there yourself. That's a very good way, and sharing the Dhamma with others, giving Dhammadana. Yes, how can we explain to children the meaning of the word dukkha? A 7-year-old boy asked me, what does dukkha mean? He asked me the word dukkha, not suffering. After thinking about it, I couldn't find an answer. It seems that I still don't understand it clearly. Could you please suggest how to answer this? There's just an observation here in the suttas. There are a number of occasions in which 7-year-old boys realize the Dhamma, realize arahantship, most commonly when they're having their heads shaved. But I've noticed myself in the years of teaching and meeting with children that something happens around that age of 7 or 8. There's a kind of a new maturity that comes to children, and these big questions about what happens after death, and what is, this is quite precocious maybe, what is dukkha, but there is something definitely shifting at that age, and so it's a very good opportunity for parents to be sharing the elements of right view, and to be able to do that, you have to study those things yourself and be fluent in them. And it's often said, and I would consider this true, that the best way to know the limits of your own understanding of any topic is to try to teach it to somebody else. one of the best study methods. It's the Richard Feynman method, named after a famous physicist. And he this is something I recommend to school children. He recommends that, or at least the elder children, that when you study something, you should be able to summarize it and articulate it in such a way that an intelligent 12-year-old child could understand it. So it's a very good test of how well you understand something and whether or not you can articulate it in a down-to-earth, clear, coherent fashion. Okay, so those are just some sort of preliminary remarks. As regards the topic of dukkha, it is a complex and difficult. It's the most difficult thing, let's say, because the true understanding of the meaning of the word dukkha is synonymous with the attainment of nibbana, of arahantship. You say, what happens when you become an arahant? You understand what dukkha means. And so all of us who have not yet reached arahantship, even sotapannas, sakitagamis, anagamis, don't truly understand the meaning of dukkha until that final enlightenment. So that's how profound it is. Now, dukkha can be divided in different ways again. There's, to take the commentarial, I'm going to give a general explanation first before trying to articulate it in such a way that's appropriate for a 7-year-old boy. Let's just sort of go through this topic in some detail. So the first kind of dukkha is called like dukkha. and dukkha is what generally we would call suffering, like tangible, unpleasant feeling, physical Watthana. That's clear out. Dukkha, it's suffering. But there's also the suffering which is inherent in this changing world in which we live in. Just now I was talking about change and understanding change and how that's the major thrust of our wisdom practice, understanding change. But this second kind of dukkha is can be explained in terms of an example. They say there are 3 kinds of feeling. Okay, so pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. Let's say you have a unpleasant feeling, a dukkha. So you are unpleasant feeling, and that unpleasant feeling disappears, passes away, and you experience a neutral feeling. On another occasion, you have a pleasant feeling, and that pleasant feeling passes away, and you have a neutral feeling. So in both cases, you're experiencing a neutral feeling, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. But in the first case, when a neutral feeling follows an unpleasant feeling, the neutral feeling is experienced as unpleasant. Is experienced as pleasant. Whereas if you have, after a pleasant feeling, if you experience a neutral feeling following a pleasant feeling, that neutral feeling is experienced as unpleasant because there's a loss, there's the separation from the pleasant feeling. If you have an unpleasant feeling and then you experience a neutral feeling, the neutral feeling is experienced as pleasant because of the the change from the pleasant feeling. So this is just an aspect of change, and the dukkha. There's a dukkha that arises simply because of change, inherent in the process of change. Now, the third kind of dukkha is the most profound, and this can be characterized as profound, the most deepest kind of instability, because all phenomena change, have to change according to causes and conditions over which we have little control. There is nothing able to maintain itself in any one state for any length of time. In other words, every single aspect of experience is unstable, unreliable, imperfect. So this is the other aspect of the meaning of the word dukkha, is the inherent, inescapable imperfection of incompleteness of all phenomena, of all experience. So even if you have a very pleasant experience, you can't sustain that pleasant experience. Let's say you love art, okay, and you make a lot of money, huge amount of money, and you're able to buy the picture of your dreams, the artwork of your dreams, the most beautiful artwork you've ever seen, and you put it on your wall. So how long could you stand in front of that most beautiful artwork in the world and enjoy it before you got bored, or before your legs started to ache, or before you have to go to the bathroom, or before you have to go and eat something? So that there's no experience, no matter how sublime, which is lasting. So you can see the difference in the feeling also, that or emotion that arises. If I was to say everything changes, that's a kind of neutral kind of statement, isn't it? But if I was to say the same thing in slightly different words and say nothing lasts, exactly the same meaning as everything changes, but there's a sadness in that, isn't there? Nothing lasts. Any relationship, any experience, anything that you strive for, anything that you love, anything you enjoy, nothing lasts. So that's the sadness. It's a particular way of looking at change and the implications of change, and a sense of the flavor of dukkha. That there's no point in life where you can say, I've made it, and stick my flag in here. This is it. Now I've done it. Now I'm a success. You see this in sports world, or for instance, somebody wins an Olympic gold medal, or someone wins the World Cup at football, and within a week or two they've got to start on the next competition, and there's always something going on, and you're actually having to face new challenges, and there's no resting place. It's like, let's imagine you had a room or a place to live full of most comfortable furniture, like in Blatu's place downstairs. Everything is just so comfortable, and somebody said, this is Blatu's house. He's very kind. You can sit on any piece of furniture you like, but you can only sit there for 1 minute, and then you have to move to something else. So every single piece of furniture, super comfortable, but you can't sit on it for more than a minute, and you have to change. So where's the dukkha? It's not in the feeling of sitting, is it? It's the fact that it's not reliable. It's not anything that you can trust for very long, or something that you can look to make you happy for very long. So the dukkha is, in one sense, is a word that describes the nature of existence, the nature of experience. This is the dukkha in the three characteristics, or the tilakkhana. But that's not the same thing as dukkha in the Four Noble Truths. You know, there is suffering, there's a cause of suffering, the end of suffering. So obviously, the end of suffering for an individual human being doesn't mean that the nature of phenomena change. Everything is going to be still the same as it was before. So in this, the dukkha in the Four Noble Truths is the application or the significance or the impact of the nature of existence on the human mind. And in its particular application to the Four Noble Truths, we can say that everything that you experience in life is ready to, can be a problem at any time. It's like if you're walking through a forest and the forest is full of poisonous snakes, banded kraits, king cobras, snakes which will cause death or pain close to death. But these snakes will not come onto the footpath through the forest. So as long as you keep on the footpath, the snake won't bite you. But the moment you take even one step off that narrow path, it's a very narrow path, windy path, and it's kind of overgrown, so it's not very clear, the path either. If you take one step off that path, you're going to get bitten by a nasty poisonous snake and probably die. So how would you characterize that walk through the forest? You know, a bit stressful, isn't it? Even though you know, as long as you don't take a step off the path, nothing's going to happen to you. But you just lose your mindfulness for a moment, lose your balance for a moment. Be just a moment of heedfulness and you'll get bitten. So this is how we can look at the world. So if we're on the Eightfold Path, it's kind of narrow path, a little bit difficult to navigate, always not so clear exactly where it is. But on either side of this path, there are snakes. And the moment that you lose your mindfulness, the moment you lose your wisdom, the moment you give up on your precepts, you're going to get bitten. It might not be a banded crate or a cobra. It might not be pain unto death, but you will be bitten every time you stray from the path. You'll get bitten. So this is how we say, like, life is dukkha, or life includes dukkha. You know, in fact, in the Pali, there isn't that word is. You know, we have to put that in English. Some people say, well, life is dukkha, but that's not what the Buddha says. There is dukkha. So life includes dukkha, is a characteristic or the chief defining characteristic. It's that even when we're not at the moment experiencing unpleasantness, we are in danger. And it's only the stream enterer and one who has realized at least the first stage of enlightenment who is free of danger. Otherwise, we're all in the war zone. You know. So again, another analogy is to say there's a war going on. I I know a monk who's trying to build a monastery in the Ukraine at the moment, in the countryside, and where he lives, there's been no fighting and no bombing, but it's chronically unsafe place. So, like even a civil war, a war in which many people are dying every day, it doesn't mean that every single population center, every city, every town, every village has bombs falling on it. It's being shelled by artillery every moment of the day. There are areas which have not seen any fighting at all, but they are all in the war zone, and they could all be bombed at any moment. They could be shelled by artillery at any moment. They could be overrun by soldiers at any moment. And this is the Buddhist vision of life, of the unenlightened being, that even when things are going well, you've got a good job, you've got a loving relationship, family is good, making money and so on. This is like you're in the town or the city in the war zone and there's no bombs falling right now. But it doesn't mean that you're safe. And you're just kidding yourself if you think you are. You might get away with it. And there are certain places that go through civil wars and most incredible conflicts and are not hardly impacted at all. This kind of thing does happen. But dukkha says we're in the war zone. We're in the danger that nothing that we rely upon, we depend upon, whether it's our material support or the support of loved ones and family, nothing can be taken for granted. Nothing is an absolute refuge. Everything is changing. We can be separated from everything and anything we love at any moment. And that's not sort of adopting an alarmist, unnecessarily bleak view of human life. It's an observation, and I think it's one that's difficult to argue with when you really look at what's going on in life and in the world today. So dukkha doesn't just mean the present unpleasant feeling of dukkha. It means the situation, the implications, the big picture of our life, what's really going on. As for us, each individual, as someone who is subject to old age, sickness, and death, and separation at any moment. So with the practice of Dhamma, the world is the world, just the way it's always been. But we're living with that wisdom that understands it and doesn't create problems out of these natural phenomena. There's someone who is able to find joy through goodness and kindness and through the development of virtues and kunatham in the human heart. So, as Buddhists, we say that life is asking you questions. You may be shutting your ears and you may not want to hear these questions, but the moment you stop and just take stock of life and what's really going on, big picture, life is asking you a lot of questions. And Buddhism not so keen on telling you all the answers, but Buddhism gives you skills, gives you the maturity to be able to find good answers to those questions. So this is kind of a long, rambling discourse on dukkha. So I'm not sure, this 7-year-old boy, whether this is a student of Torsi and he heard me use the word dukkha, because I tried to use the word dukkha rather than tuk in Thai language, because the word tuk has all these meanings in everyday Thai language, which can distort or mask the meaning of the word dukkha as meant by the Buddha. I think for a 7-year-old boy can say that when you lose your mindfulness, when you're not wise, when you're not kind, then problems arise in life immediately. And the more you follow your defilements and your greed and your hatred and your dislikes and so on, the more problems you have. That's the more dukkha you have. And the less you follow and the more you can let go of your jealousies and selfishness and greed, the happier you are and the less dukkha and the less suffering you have. So I think just something very, very basic and experiential, that Buddha says dukkha is the problem that come because we don't understand ourselves and the world. When we don't understand ourselves and the world, we have a lot of harmful desires in our mind. And the Buddha says that suffering or dukkha ends when we understand ourselves and the world we live in clearly, so that all the negative mental states, the defilements, disappear. Okay, I better carry on to the next question. Namaskaran Prajan Joka. Can you kindly advise how best we can maintain our spiritual values in a world where success is very much defined by financial values? And how can we be sure that we are living our lives on the right track? I think I would question that first premise of this question, in that we live in a world where success is very much defined by financial values. There's certainly defining success by financial values is very common in educated, middle-class, urban dwellers. But, a criticism in a slightly different context, which I've made a number of times, is often talking to people in Bangkok, and they say Thailand is like this and Thailand is like that, and I'm thinking, you mean Bangkok? And so the tendency to think that Bangkok is Thailand and all that goes on in Bangkok is representative of the rest of the country is something that I don't really agree with. But if your particular world, the world of your family and friends and your social class is defined by financial values, I would say not exclusively, even there. I don't think that there's anybody, or very few people, I think, who would say that money is all that matters. And people maybe pay lip service to other values. But I think that, we're complex people and that we have different values, and financial success is one value that can be incorporated in a healthy lifestyle. It's simply that it's not number one value. It's a matter of prioritizing values. Because people say, oh yeah, when you criticize, measuring success in terms of money and possessions, then people immediately switch into this. Well, if you didn't have money, you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that. You're living in a dream world. As to make it a very sort of extreme either or. But this is not, what we're saying. We're saying is that there are many different things to consider in trying to create a life that you can be proud of, and a life that is fulfilling, not only financially but emotionally, spiritually. You can have a healthy family relationships and so on. If you make a lot of money, but it means that you're hardly ever at home, then what's the point? If you don't have time with your family, you don't have time by yourself, well, what do you need it for? And if you have a lot of money and you're creating more money, what exactly does that mean? It's not that money is this thing, it's like some kind of superpower and something that's kind of in you, just giving you this incredible kind of energy and happiness all the time. It's just an idea, isn't it? After you've got a certain amount of money to pay all your bills and to buy the toys you want or the clothes you want, then everything on top of that, it's just an idea. I've got so much money in the bank, or I've got so many stocks. That's an idea in your head that arises and passes away. And when you say that money is really important, you mean that idea, that sense of I have all that is important to you. But in the end of the day, it's an idea. It's just a feeling. It's just a kind of pleasure that you give importance to. So I think that if we're looking at life, we need to sit down and just look at all the different areas of life which are important to us. So financial security, obviously important. But there are certain things that are important in themselves. Like I say, the quality of your relationship with your parents or your children, your spouse, your loved ones, your friends. That is important in itself. But there are other things that are only important sort of as thoughts or in relationship to other people, or how you think it makes people look at you or your position in society. This is all proliferation in your head, isn't it? It's like this is your own little private world. It's not the real world, it's just the world of your thinking. So if you look at what are the kinds of criteria that we want to have, look after our physical health. If we're working in a way which is adding zeros to your bank account, but you're run down and your health is suffering. Is that wise? Is that sustainable? If you're so stressed out, you come home and you're grumpy and you're miserable, and you spread that grumpiness and misery with all the people in your family, is it really worth it? What's worth it? What's most worth it? What makes life worth living? And how important is money and financial values in that equation? It's one part of it. So it's taking this very unworldly attitude. Money's not important. Don't worry about money. Just not saying that at all. But just saying that it's just one factor. It's just one ingredient of the household life. But it becomes an obsession and to the expense of other values, then it's foolishness in my view. So I think that you have to really be questioning these values and seeing what kind of life you want to be creating for yourself, and what kind of values you want to be modeling for your children. And because what you do, how you live your life, that's one of the most important teachings that you're giving your children. It's not what you say and the sort of books you read at night time before you go to bed, and words of wisdom, as much as how you live your life. That's how you handle your emotions, how you relate to the people around you. These are the models that you're giving to your children, that they absorb and and they themselves find themselves acting out in later years. So I think that today's society is broad enough and liberal enough that you can go a little bit on your own way and be a little bit eccentric and not necessarily follow the herd and the crowd. And Thailand has always had a very high tolerance of diversity, far more than in the Western world, for sure. It's one of the most inspiring features of Thai culture, I think. If you compare with for instance, the way that minorities have been treated in European and American countries, the treatment of people from different ethnic backgrounds, people different skin color, different religions, and you study, the history of how people from minorities have suffered in the Western world, and you compare it with Thailand. Thailand's just incredible. It's just so inspiring. I don't think many people really recognize that these days. So, there is that opportunity, I think, just to follow the path less trodden, do things that are not quite the same as other people in your social group, and to be accepted for it. And sometimes, even if there is some misunderstanding, it's worth it, I would say. If everything is uncertain, why do or why should we make commitments, marriage, relationships, and so on? Well, everything's uncertain, but some things are more certain than others. And it's not that you can't make commitments and you can't keep commitments. I mean, we know people make lifetime commitments all the time. I've made a lifetime commitment to being a monk. People make lifetime commitments to their spouses. So it doesn't mean that everything's uncertain. Therefore, you can't trust anybody, or do you? That's not really what it means. What it means is that nothing is 100% certain. Let's say you can't take anything for granted. Things can change. They sort of say that everything will change, or maybe it will change within certain parameters that are acceptable and don't create major stress or difficulties. But making commitments, that's part of growing maturity as a human being. You say making a commitment to a marriage. Parents make commitments to their children. Monks make commitment to their monastic order, and there's something that's just really fulfilling in that, and it is a Dhamma practice, because once you make a commitment to something, it's like through thick and thin. In the Christian marriage ceremony, through in sickness and in health, and richness and poverty. I can't remember, but the idea is like come what may. Ups and downs, you're going to be there for each other, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to give that to somebody. So maybe there's someday in the future, one of you you're either going to be you're either going to die before your spouse, or your spouse is going to die before you are. One day, but it may not be until you're 70 or 80 years old. It might come before that. But in the meantime, make the best use of it and see the value of these uncertain phenomena. So the value, the advantage of reminding oneself of the uncertainty is to not take it for granted, and to investigate what are the causes and conditions, the supporting conditions that make this as solid as it could be, and what are those ways of acting, speaking, thinking, which undermine those conditions which we want to support. See, because everything's uncertain, because all things are a function of causes and conditions, but we have the intelligence to be able to isolate, to recognize what are the causes and conditions, and although there are a number of them over which we have no control at all, there are others in which we do have some control. So you have a marriage. One of the factors which will ensure a long, solid, happy marriage is keeping the third precept and not committing adultery. So that's one way to make a relationship solid. and to make the best out of that kind of commitment. That's one example. Okay, how can we explain rebirth to our Western friends? Okay. Okay, try to make this as brief as possible. First of all, in the distinction that I made yesterday, and those of you who listen to me frequently know that I make quite often between these two families or species even of religion, belief system religions and education system religions. Now, because of the preeminence of Western culture, which is based upon belief system religions, then the influence of the Western way of thinking and Western understanding of what a religion is pervades everywhere. And many people in Thailand who've been through Western education or international schools or whatever will tend to look at Buddhism through Western eyes. That's to say, to see what is an essentially education system religion as a belief system religion, which is cause of many problems which I don't have time to go into today. Now, in the West, for young people looking to rebel, one of the ways to rebel is to declare yourself an atheist. And for devout Christians and Muslims, declaring yourself an atheist is probably the best kind of rebellion if you want to get a strong emotional reaction from your parents. It's like pronouncing yourself basically evil. So a really big appeal to teenagers on that one. But what they mean by atheism, if it's sincere in that, is to mean I cannot believe in what you tell me I have to believe in. You have certain dogmas and you say to be a Christian or a Muslim or whatever, I have to believe in these things and I don't believe in them. I can't believe in them. Therefore, I'm an atheist. So atheist comes from A meaning not and theist meaning believer in God. Atheist means not a believer in God, not a believer in a creator God. Now, a lot of young Thai people these days are starting to say they're atheists, which is comical when you think about it, saying, I'm no longer a Buddhist, I'm an atheist. It's a lot of kids saying that these days. So they're basically telling people, I no longer consider myself part of a religion which doesn't accept the existence of a creator God because I don't accept the existence of a creator God. I mean, it's just a meaningless statement. But it's kind of it sort of sounds cool to say you're an atheist, even though the person who says it obviously doesn't know what the word means. So part of looking at Buddhism as a belief system religion means that people who want to say, I don't want to have anything to do with Buddhism, have to find like a dogma, a Buddhist dogma, and say, I'm not a Buddhist because I don't believe in that. And the number one favorite one is rebirth. I'm not a Buddhist because I don't believe in rebirth. So this is not confined to Western friends, a lot of Thai people these days. So again, this is a big topic, but let's start with a very important and unique teaching of the Buddha, which appears in the Chanki Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, in which the Buddha uses this incredible phrase called Satchanuraka. Satcha Anuraka, Anurak Satcha. So we anurak Satcha, we take care of the truth by not asserting that because we believe something, it must be true. So this is the feature of most religious systems, isn't it? People say, it's true. And you say, well, what do you mean? How do you know it's true? My religion is true. What does that mean? You say, well, the moment I first read, moment I heard this, I knew. I just knew it was true. And so most religious people are caught in this circular reasoning. It's true because I believe it. Well, why do you believe it? Because it's true. Well, how do you know it's true? Because I believe it. But why do you believe it? Because it's true. So you just go round and round and round. And this is why any kind of debates with religious people are very frustrating. So this is one of the sort of revolutionary teachings of the Buddha. So the Buddha says, yeah, you may be 100% convinced it's true, absolutely, without any doubts at all, and yet it may not be true. And I don't think there's anybody in the world who can refute that statement. Because, for instance, let's say a billion Christians must accept the statement that over a billion or how many Muslims have a complete faith in something which is not true. Similarly, the Muslims have to say that, yes, Christians have strong faith. They have completely convinced of something, but it's not true. So for people who have strong faith, they believe everybody except themselves believe in untrue things. But the point being, the principle being, therefore, do you not accept that believing in something unconditionally does not mean that what you believe in is true? So this is the most fundamental humility. This is the wisdom of the Buddha, and it's absolute revolutionary religious teaching. Where else can you find that kind of wisdom? So when people ask about rebirth, they tend to assume it's a dogma, meaning that Buddhists have to believe in rebirth. Okay? So you believe in rebirth. So why do you believe in rebirth? And it's a question of whether or not you believe in rebirth decides on whether or not you're a Buddhist. So the Buddha is saying, if you don't understand anything, ya lop lu, don't disrespect it, don't put it down, and don't dismiss it. But if you don't believe something, then recognize, yeah, it's true or not, I don't know. I don't believe it because this and this and this. So if you're talking about rebirth with somebody who's not familiar about it, this is what the first point I'm making here is, you have to make clear it's not a dogma. This is not a dogmatic religion, which means, you have to sign up for belief in rebirth before you can be considered a bona fide Buddhist. But it's one of those things that vast majority of people have no direct experience of. And it's something that you take in trust in the Buddha, but recognizing that and acknowledging that you don't actually know. Okay? So if somebody asks you about Buddhism, say, well, I don't have any direct experience. I do have confidence in this teaching and faith in this teaching because, and then you have your reasons. So some examples of the reasons would be, firstly, the vast number of teachings given by the Buddha himself on this topic. And there's no way anybody who reads primary sources can put forward the view that these were ideas added on afterwards by editors. These are right in the heart of the teachings. Now, the logic for believing in these teachings of the Lord Buddha is that the Buddha taught a huge number of things, some of them very profound, which only very wise people can verify. But there are many teachings which anybody can put to the test. And that if you try to put the teachings of the Buddha to the test And again and again and again and again you say, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's right. Yes, 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 yes. So what happens? You start to have trust. The Buddha is a reliable guide. The Buddha knows what he's talking about. And I say this because in all of the many teachings that he's taught that I've taken the trouble to put to the test of experience, it's been right every single time. Not a single occasion can I think of when the Buddha's let me down in his analysis and his recommendations. So I have a belief, you can say I have a belief in rebirth because it's something taught by someone who I found the wisest, most reliable guide in my life ever. Secondly, there are many spiritually advanced beings, meditators, people who develop very profound states of samadhi, who as a consequence have experienced or had memory of past lives. So again, there's three possibilities here. One, it's a genuine memory of past life. Two, the people who say that they've had those memories are lying to you. Or three, they're deluded. Okay? So in the case of monks and nuns, almost generally you can say you can just cross out the lying option. And the two options that remain is the genuine memories of past lives, or else they are deluded. And again, this would depend on your contact with that person and your assessment of their wisdom and integrity and capabilities. And in my case, I would say the people that I've known who've spoken about past lives have been people who impress me with their wisdom and understanding and spiritual maturity to the extent that I think the likelihood that these are delusions and visions is very small, and the likelihood that these are true memories is very strong. Another important and sort of a non-religious support is the case of children all over the world, not only in cultures which instill a belief in rebirth. Children primarily from the ages of 3 to 5 or 6 who have very detailed and verifiable memories of past lives. In the University of Virginia, they have a department devoted to the investigation of claims by children, and they go into them in great detail, and they're very aware if they make any mistakes or they're sloppy in their scholarship that they'll be universally condemned by people who don't like this idea. So far they have almost 3,000 verified cases of children remembering past lives in detail. And so for someone who does not believe in rebirth, the question is, given this phenomena, children claiming to remember past lives, giving details of places, houses, rooms, people, relationships, events in great detail about things over which they could not possibly have ever heard from anybody else in their family or their surroundings, which they could not have read about. How do you explain? What's your hypothesis to your alternative hypothesis? Buddhist hypothesis is these children are remembering past lives. Given this evidence, what is your hypothesis which you consider more convincing than rebirth? One more supportive condition is that of people remembering past lives under hypnosis. And there are, I think you can probably find on the internet audio files and probably on YouTube as well. I haven't looked on YouTube. But these are quite startling and incredible testimonies as well. Um, so when a Western or a non-Buddhist friend or asking about rebirth, in short, to explain this is not something you have to believe in, because the most important thing is not to claim that you know something that you only believe. And you believe in it, it makes sense to you because, for instance, the teachings of the Buddha, who you found to be a most trustworthy teacher and guide, because of the evidence of meditators over the years, of the centuries, who claim to have remembered past lives, the evidence of children all around the world, particularly those gathered, collated in the University of Virginia, and from people all over the world who have remembered past lives under hypnosis. Okay.
Manipulation มันคิดว่า manipulation เป็นสิ่งที่ไม่ดีแต่ว่าถ้าเราทำเพื่อ achieve good things
I can't
like
hear. Can you?
Manipulation is that a bad thing? I mean, sometimes you want to manipulate to get good results, and it's almost like a white lie sometimes. So,
well, it's very good if you're an osteopath, but generally speaking, we use it in a negative connotation, don't we? We mean like using a trick to get people to do what we want. Say, make somebody feel guilty, or say, if you really love me, you do this. So I mean, like if you don't do it, you don't really love me, or something like this. It's like emotional blackmail. So, but sometimes you can be accused of being manipulative or manipulating people when it's not really the case. You know, you're just trying to speak skillfully or appealing to people's emotions. So there's an honest and a dishonest way of appealing to people's emotions. But if you're doing it in a kind of sneaky, underhand way without, you're not letting that person really, not being honest with that person in the way that you speak with them, then yeah, manipulation not a good thing, is it? So if you try to use people's weaknesses or their defilements as a kind of a tool, as a means to get them to do what you want them to do, then that's not wholesome or a good thing to do. And you know, it's good to recognize some of the phrases that people use when they try to manipulate them, to, you know, so that you are ready for it. You know, so you know that one. If you loved me, you would do this, or you know, somebody want you to do something, and you don't want to do it, and they try to make you feel, well, if you don't do it, you're a bad person, or you're a selfish person. You know, so for a lot of good people, this is like a really painful one. If somebody says you're being selfish, you know, immediately, you know, you don't want anybody to think you're selfish, and so maybe you just say, okay, because you're afraid of being seen as selfish. So seeing those kind of trigger words that everyone has, and being mindful of them, and not letting people use them as weapons to get you to do what they want you to do. It's an important way of protecting yourself, you say. Or somebody says, you're better than this. Have you ever heard that one? You know, it's like meaning if you were a better person than this, you do what that person wants you to do, or say what that person wants you to say. Or if you there's also, you know, the way that some people behave, it's just like little things, you know, that accumulate over time, but each one is kind of malicious, little by little, to try to undermine your sense of self-confidence or well-being. But then if you tell them you do this, it's not correct. They say, why are you so petty? Why you make such a fuss about such a small thing? But really it's just because it's a small thing, it's a part of a bigger pattern. But if you're not careful, somebody says to you, you're so petty, making a fuss about such a small thing, and you don't want to be a petty person, so you say, oh, I'm sorry, forget it, so that's manipulation, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, okay. I don't know whether I had to answer this one. Yeah, okay. Why do Thai Buddhists fear Muslims taking over Buddhism in Thailand? I would say, let me see. First of all, talking about the differences between religions, one of the most important distinctions between religions, which is rarely spoken about, is the position on conversion of people who belong to other religions. So in that belief system group of religions, the religions that grew up in the Middle East, because their emphasis is salvation through faith and belief, you have to believe in these things before you can go to heaven. And then so if you have that kind of view of religion, then you have a problem. Well, how do you relate to people who have a different belief, who you consider, because they don't believe what you believe, when they die, they're going to a bad place? So ethically, should you try to help them? And to what degree should you try to persuade them to give up their wrong belief and accept your right belief? So this is an issue in this belief system religions from the beginning, and why there's so much conflict between these different religions throughout history. I recently read something that someone wrote, like, religion gives people hope in a world torn apart by religion. So now Buddhism is a religion in which there is no, there's not the emphasis, you have to believe in this, this and this until you go to heaven. Buddhism based on belief in action. Good actions of body, speech and mind will lead to good rebirth. So if you ask a Buddhist, can a Muslim go to heaven? Well, of course. If a Muslim acts well, speaks well, thinks well, good person, yeah, sure. Can a Christian go to heaven? Yeah, why not? Can an atheist go to heaven? Yeah, why not? So why would you want to convert anybody? If they're good people within their religions, they'll go to a good place, good on them. So this is why in Buddhism there's no effort to try to get people to change their religion and become Buddhists. We say, yeah, if you're a Muslim, may you be a good Muslim. You're a Christian, may you be a good Christian. You're a good atheist, be a good atheist. So this is a really universal religion, isn't it? It doesn't make those distinctions between us and them. But what happens when you have a religion like Buddhism, which has no interest in converting people who belong to other religions to become Buddhists, but other religions have an open policy of trying to get people of your religion to change and members of those religions. So of course there's going to be some kind of fear and some distrust. It's like I was speaking with someone recently, and they were in a meeting of religious leaders, and the chairman was the Dalai Lama. And he was speaking to the leaders of the other religions, of Christians and Muslims and Mormons and all these different people. And he said, I respect you so much, all that you do in your religions. Just one thing I don't understand is, why do you always have to try to convert us all the time? Can't we just be friends? Why do you have to get people from other religions to change and be the same as you? Like we have the nature, have all different kinds of trees, all kinds of different flowers. Diversity is beautiful. Why should we all want to just be one thing? Why can't we just live together as friends? So this is the Buddhist view. But when a religion which doesn't have any, doesn't try to convert other people, but lives in the same country, in the same society with religions that do try, then there is going to be some problems, and there needs to be some protection. See, like the usual view of religion, religious freedom is the majority religion will take advantage of the smaller religion, the minority religion. But in fact, that's not always the case. It's much more a sense of if the religion is a converting religion, evangelical religion, or not. In my view, religions which are not evangelical religions should have protection against evangelical religions, so that all religions have the right to teach and to share their teachings with others. And if people are genuinely inspired and they want to become members of that religion, that's their right, absolutely. But if they're using, whether it's funding or kind of monetary inducements and all kinds of basically bribes to get people to convert, or using more aggressive means, then I don't think that's a good thing, and that Buddhists should be protected from that. There should be a distinction between ethical and unethical conversion.